gentlemen come on up. We're going to talk about the world of multi-chain and cross-chain and the interoperability of blockchain systems. Thank you very much all for coming. And I'm sure we'll fill in as people digest their sandwiches and filter in. So yeah, really excited to be here today with a very distinguished panel of folks who are in a variety of positions across the world of both custody and bridging. And so, I'm going to start off by just talking to you a little bit about a model that I think of when it comes to interoperability, which is the world that we live in terms of air travel. So raise your hand if you came here on an airplane. A few of you did. Most of us did. I think everyone from SDF did. And so also raise your hand if you use Kayak to search for a fare. Anybody use Kayak, Expedia, any of those sites to look for a fare, to look for a route? Didn't know how you were going to get here? Okay. So there is this world in which airplanes are bridging between cities, right? So we're going from different geographies, different countries, different languages, different cultures. We travel across the world. And I think everyone in this room is super privileged to be able to do that, right? To bridge yourself between places in the world. And we think about Kayak as like a bridge aggregator, right? If airplanes are performing the function of a bridge, then airports are wallets, that land us as value in the places where we want to go. And Kayak and Expedia are like bridge aggregators that give you visibility to all the routes that you can possibly take. And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to have a self-introduction of each of the gentlemen that have joined us today to talk about kind of their role, their company, and where they fit in. I'm going to start right next to me with Jason.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jason. I'm the Director of Business Development at Axeler. What Axeler does is secure cross-chain communications platform. Axeler allows applications to send messages between any of the chains that we're connected to. This is in contrary to traditional token bridging, where you can only move assets from one bridge to another. Building off of the analogy you made earlier, if bridges are like traditional highways and airplanes, with messaging bridges, instead of only having direct flights from one city to another, you're now able to do layovers and have multiple hops, which the implication of that is now you can build all type of very complicated and application that requires multiple functionalities combined into one, which massively simplifies the user experience.
Thank you. Torsten.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot. I'm Torsten. I'm the CTO of Pendulum. And Pendulum is a parachain project on Polkadot. Our main goal is to become the central hub for stablecoins on Polkadot. And we also focus on every DeFi application for stablecoins and for Forex. We have been building Polkadot since Pendulum for quite some time, but we are not live yet. Our mainnet will only go live at the beginning of next year. The company behind Pendulum that initiated Pendulum is called Satoshi Pay, so I'm actually CTO of also Satoshi Pay. Satoshi Pay has quite some history with Stellar. We have been building on Stellar for over 5 years. We've been building different payment solutions. We built a wallet, Solar wallet for Stellar, and we also have been operating 3 of the Tier 1 validator nodes for the Stellar network during that time. And the Tier 1 validator nodes are actually the nodes in the network with the highest amount of trust. Before that, I worked in academia for 7 years, did research in computer science, and I'm very excited that we can apply that kind of research now for the future of blockchain technology. And in addition to this, we also built a bridge between Stellar and Polkadot. That's why I'm here. It's called the Spacewalk Bridge.
Awesome. And yes, shameless promo. Definitely you can see that on the demo, in the demo stage area, yes. Right after this session. Yuri.
Hello. I'm Yuri. I'm CTO and co-founder of Allbridge. We at Allbridge are specializing in token bridges between different blockchains, and we've got several bridging products we've launched last year. We support both EVM and non-EVM blockchains, and we actually bridged even the blockchain without smart contracts with XRPL. And we're gonna build a bridge to the Stellar as well. Very, very soon. So we will connect Stellar with all the other blockchains. And yeah, stay tuned for updates.
Awesome. Luis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Bayer, and I am the Marketing Operations Director at Credo. And in a nutshell, what we build at Credo is a decentralized custody. So we've got multi-party computation wallets and Credo Network, which is a blockchain that stores all the governance and custody policies from all of the organizations that work with Credo. And again, we support like multiple chains as we are multi-party computation. We are not kind of blockchain centric, like for example, regular multisigs will focus on an ecosystem. So for example, if they're in Ethereum, they will focus on all of the EVMs. And with multi-party computation, we can skip that and be open to other chains and protocols. Some of the products that we have and partnerships that work with us at the moment are MetaMask Institutional, which allows institutions all around the world to access Web3 in a secure way with Credo.
Awesome. I'm going to stay with you, Luis, and then we'll go through the panel coming back towards me on your growth strategy. So as you go out and talk to the world about what Credo does, what audiences are most important to you? How are you growing the business?
So our main focus are institutions, crypto institutions, like hedge funds, prop firms, but also traditional finance corporations. For example, banks, fintechs are very interested right now in building wallet infrastructure for crypto. So the way that we handle this and being totally decentralized, which means we don't keep any of the assets or a shard of the keys or anything, so we don't have any part of control for that. The good thing is that they are interested in using our products and services. Once they understand how our product works, they realize the importance of self-custody, and we can offer that for them. Some of the growth strategies that we are doing, it's actually as first, partnering with the majority of the chains and ecosystems. So we work together with their foundations in order to get a higher impact in their ecosystems. And also, we are opening, as we are permissionless, we are opening our, well, it's actually opened for any retail users that actually want to use our product. So there's not an onboarding process, and that's something good because everyone can open an extremely secure self-custody multi-party computation wallet in just 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think coming back to this analogy too, you know, if the wallet is the airport where you land all the planes, like imagine if one airport was only served by Ryanair. Like if you could only take Ryanair, like no one would go there probably. But no offense to Ryanair, but a single airport.
I came with Ryanair, and I'm going back
I arrived
with
on Ryanair. I totally flew Ryanair. If anyone's ever Ryanair, yeah, absolutely love it. High value. However, yes, imagine, you know, if an airport was only served by one airline, right? So like much lower utility. So yeah, it's great to hear the advancement progress of Credo. Yuri, what are you doing at Albridge?
Well, in regards of bringing new users, there will be an interesting challenge in the current months, because like the era of crazy DeFi users who are moving crazy amounts of liquidity between blockchains, chasing those incentivization, well, it's over for now. Let's see, maybe it comes back. So we need to focus on basically bringing more users, but more regular users. So not the ones who are moving liquidity all the time, but okay, I need this move. I need to go from A to B. And that's the good analogy you had with Expedia or Kayak, because that's what our focus is right now, to partnership with as many bridge aggregators as possible, because they will be like the names the people will know when they want to move liquidity. And then our goal is provide a better value for the users and stand out between the other bridges who will be offered there. So yeah, that's our goal, to make it as simple to integrate our bridge as possible and to bring more and more and more regular users.
Yeah, more interoperability. Torsten.
Yes, so we are maybe a little bit in a different situation than the other participants here, because we are not live yet, whereas the other companies here already have live bridges. So at the moment, of course, our main focus is still to bring the most secure bridge that we can imagine to the Stellar network. And we are mostly, or I'm mostly concerned with really designing this bridge in a way and building the bridge in a way that it is safely usable. Another point why we are a little bit different than the other companies here is that the bridge is not our main purpose, but we also build a blockchain itself. And the bridge is one part of that whole package, but the blockchain is, of course, a bigger project, and we also very much focus on the blockchain itself. And the bridge and the blockchain will go live at the same point in time at the beginning of next year. And when I talk about how we grow, our bridge, then we also have to talk about how we grow our blockchain. And of course, we are not live yet, so at the moment we focus on the aspect of building it. But if we talk about the next steps for the bridge, of course, growing the bridge means that we don't just have that one bridge, but we also connect to other networks. What we do is a unified standard for building bridges for Polkadot. The bridge to Stellar is one aspect, but since a lot of networks work very differently, it is really hard to build many different bridges. Of course, when you deploy bridges to many EVM-compatible blockchains, you can basically copy the bridge in some sense. But for example, the EVM universe works very differently to Stellar. And also when Stellar introduces smart contracts now with Soroban, which is a great achievement, then this will also look very different to the EVM world. So if you want to build many different bridges, you need to have a standard, particularly if you want to deploy this for Polkadot, and that's what we are building as the next step.
Yeah, it's like, being multilingual and operating in these different cultures and different environments. Absolutely. Jason,
Exactly.
talk about growth a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. At Axler, we really think about growth in two ways. Firstly, we're trying to integrate as many blockchains as possible. So that includes all layer 1s, layer 2s, and app chains. So we're going to continue to add new blockchains. We currently support 24 chains today, which includes the majority of the EVMs, as well as Cosmos IBC chains. Next on our roadmap, we'll have Arbitrum and Optimism and Celo by the end of this month, and we'll have Aptos and Sui when they launch as well. On the second hand, we're trying to encourage as many DApp developers to build true cross-chain applications that have brand new DeFi primitives built on top of our message passing technology. So, in a way, we're trying to create our own Axler ecosystem with different types of applications that might have home bases on other chains, but are true cross-chain in nature. So as an example of that, one project that's really cool is Squid. They're able to power cross-chain swaps by tapping into existing liquidity. Through Squid's APIs and SDKs, a user can now swap any token on any chain to any other token on any chain with a one-click experience, massively simplifying the user experience, and which we believe will drive adoption for the next billion users in crypto.
That's exciting. Absolutely. So I'm going to change gears a little bit and talk about, I don't think you can really talk about bridges and interoperability without talking about headlines, right? And a lot of them are negative. So we're going to talk a little bit about that topic. I'm going to quote Elliptic co-founder Tom Robinson said, "Blockchain bridges have become low-hanging fruit for cyber criminals. We've seen over $1 billion invest just this year, and in fact, last night, this morning, we woke up to a $100 million hack on Mango Markets, which is a Solana-based DeFi protocol and platform." And so, I don't think we can talk about bridges without talking about the vulnerabilities that come with building this. I'd love to hear from this panel, what do you do? Yuri, I think you probably have the closest in perspective on this particular hack. Tell us what, first of all, tell us what happened, because in case folks didn't read the news, and then let's unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, so in this particular case, this was not a hack of a bridge, but a hack of Mango Markets, which is a leverage trading system on Solana. And the hack happened by, well, they call it the Oracle price manipulation, but most likely it was not a manipulation, but simply, so Oracles has nothing to do with it. Oracles simply report the price. And what attackers did, they inflated the price of Mongo's own token.
Native. Mm-hmm.
So they pumped it and used it to take some loans, and it was basically took everything they could. And how it concerns bridges, well, in our particular case, the bridges are the first go-to route for the attackers to move funds across blockchains, because once you're in one blockchain, it's not easy to track you, but everyone sees your address, and okay, you moved funds to a different address, but you're still on the same blockchain. So
it's an escape route, basically.
Yeah, and what the currently attackers are doing, well, these particular ones are not doing it, but it's common tactic to just hop from one blockchain to another and basically cover your tracks. And withdraw funds and I don't know ZK solutions like Tornado Cash and so Yeah, I woke up to the news, and there was a request from Mango Markets to close the bridges, and Wormhole did close their bridge to Solana. And well, we didn't close our own, but we are closely monitoring the traffic, and they're ready to close it in any second. But yeah, that's a problem currently, and like again, as you see here, the problem is not specific to bridges, but the bridges are well exceptionally ready for be attacked, because we have different blockchains with different logic, and the bridges are bridging this logic together. And currently, with the trend of decentralization, like everything we do is about decentralization and openness, the bridges are open to the public, and you can see what's going on.
For sure.
And if you have such a complex system with a lot of moving parts, and which is open and transparent, well, like, this is a growth problem because it takes time to build a properly secured protocol, and yeah, some bridges are trying to do it as fast as possible. Well, like we as well. I don't have any wood to knock on, but we haven't been hacked this way. But we still had our share of exploits. Like we had a DNS exploit, which changed our website to attackers' ones, and like people were sending funds to wrong addresses. So we are not immune to it as well. So yeah, that's the problem, but we are fixing it. One day at a time. We're doing better coding. We are doing more audits. Well, we at Allbridge have not shared some parts of the bridge, even though it is audited, and we can show you what's in there. But yeah, we took care out of not being fully transparent. So we are transparent, but not fully. But yeah, that's the way to do it, and we're on it.
Torsten, you mentioned security as a very high priority in terms of your growth. Like, what are your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, absolutely. Being in the engine room every day as the CTO, of course, that was my main concern for the last couple of months. I already said that it is really concerning to see how often bridges have been hacked lately. Just recently, or last week, was the Binance bridge hack. Someone stole 600 million.
Yeah, and then
600 or 100. I'm not entirely sure. There were different news how to interpret that. But that happened a lot of times this year already. I think there was already a hack in March. That's when the bridge hacking season started, basically, where someone also stole $600 million from another bridge. And that was basically around the time when we designed Spacewalk, when we laid the foundation. And I tried to study every single hack and try to understand what the typical patterns are. And I think typical patterns are that either the bridge is not really decentralized and you only have a few actors that can be taken over. And that was particularly that bridge hack that happened in April or in March. Someone stole those 600 million. There was a single account that used 5 out of 9 signers, and one hacker was able to take over 5 co-signers without knowing, and no one knew this. He was able to take them over by using some traditional, I don't know what kind of hacking, maybe stole the keys or used some social engineering, but the hacker was then able to take over the bridge. So not sufficient decentralization is a typical pattern. That's why we designed at least Spacewalk to be absolutely decentralized and not limited to just a few actors. The other, maybe more fundamental problem is that bridges are quite complex, and that it is easy to introduce bugs. So you can only have multiple layers of auditing to avoid that. But we see that it's maybe still not enough. Still hacks happen.
For sure.
And I think that's the most concerning problem. Of course, we can introduce more auditing. That's maybe the best measure we have to be more careful. But I think we should also cooperate more so that not everyone builds their own bridge and introduces their own bugs, but that at one point in time we have a really standardized code base for bridges. Like Linux for an operating system is very secure because people over a long time were able to reduce all the typical flaws and bugs and typical problems that you have at the beginning. Yeah. If people come together and we have this bridge standard and a code base that has over time we can avoid all the bugs. Then maybe at one point in time, we are at the bridge where you can say it's proven secure and no one needs to be concerned anymore. It's like for spaceships that at the beginning have been dangerous. People died, unfortunately. But over time, they get more and more safe and secure because once engineers find a flaw, they can reduce it. For spaceship, it's more complicated because you can just make a different flaw when you fabricate another spaceship. Maybe you introduce something, but once you reduce a flaw in the code base, it's gone, hopefully forever, and will not come back. And then over time, bridges will be more secure. I'm very confident.
We really love like space and spaceships metaphors around here. So
Absolutely.
Happy to hear that suggestion that we're like a spaceship. No, but quite seriously, on your point of kind of decentralizing development and bringing this kind of open source approach is very much what we're trying to do with Sorbonne as well. So this is something that we think is super important, is to bring the best and brightest minds together and have them test each other's code, have them try new things together and have visibility and transparency to the process. So I'm gonna give the audience a heads up because in a moment we're gonna do a little bit of Q&A. So anybody who has questions about anything we've talked about so far, the hacks, like how do they do this, what do they do? So I'm going to be calling on the audience. So I want you to be thinking about your burning questions in just a minute or two. But first, let's hear from Jason and Luis. Any thoughts on the news?
From my side, I think like at the end of the day, everything could be hackable. So, and that's something that it's just a matter of time and effort from everyone.
Yeah.
Especially things or products or software that it's more complex. Maybe if you've got very simple stuff, it could be less hackable or easier to many eyes who have audited and seen it could make it more secure. Now, I think that in near future, we will be able to use a lot of technology to be able to make audits which are much better than just people analyzing this. And we already started today to have some kind of formal verification for some smart contracts, which will allow to create safer infrastructure and safer bridges in the future. But until that reaches a point which is mature enough, and it self-evolves and improves over time, I think it's a matter of trying to build, not fast, as we mentioned here before, don't hurry, try to build it as secure and as strong as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason?
Yeah, I agree with Luis. I think first and foremost, right, we need to build bridges in a decentralized way. At Axeler, we take security very seriously, given our co-founder Sergey comes from a cybersecurity background. We also looked at all of the hacks in detail, and vast majority of the bridges that got hacked was very centralized in their architecture and had a single point of failure. So Axeler is one of the only truly decentralized cross-chain solutions on the market today, and we're really proud of that, and we believe it has massive security implications. But at the same time, what we've seen again and again is anything could be hacked, so you have to plan for contingencies. One of the things that we're really proud of is we are the first one to implement rate limits. And what that means is you're able to set a cap on the maximum amount of asset that could be transferred in a given time interval. Right now, that's set at $5 million per day on the Axeler network. This kind of rate limiting can be programmable on an application level, and this is especially important to traditional financial institutions or people that are having massive volumes going through different networks. We really see this analogous as traditional circuit breakers in traditional markets, and only when we have this kind of contingency plans in place, can people really sleep at night, and can we adopt these traditional institutions with large amounts of liquidity onto our platform and into crypto.
Yeah, it's smart. It's smart to think about those kinds of safeguards. Absolutely. Questions from the audience? I see one over there. It just happened to be the first one I set my eyes on. We'll take one, try to take one from each section. Please.
Hi. So you all have companies that are operating and you have employees and such. I don't really see, when you're building bridges, what is the financial viability of that? And are you charging fees to use your
that's a
bridge?
great question.
Or,
yeah.
I just never heard of how
I love this.
anybody makes
I wish
money.
I thought of this question. This is a great question. How do bridges make money? Or do they? Fees.
Yes.
Fee structures.
The transaction fees.
It's easy.
It's easy.
Fees.
Fees.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, taking a piece of each transaction in one way or another is the primary way of generating revenue for your businesses?
It could be different because, for example, we have several bridges with different fee structures. For one bridge, we have a traditional fee, which is like a small percentage, but you can lower this percentage if you stake our token. On a different bridge, Allbridge Core, which we just launched, which specializes just in stable coins, we actually don't charge any fees. Well, we charge gas fees, so to speak, to pay for the transaction on the other blockchain. So like simply
to pass through.
Yeah, to pass through, so that people don't have to finish transactions by themselves. But other than that, so how do we make money? It's easy because internally it's a swap, and one token gets swapped to another, and we provide our own liquidity to do the swap. So we charge the fee on the swap.
For the service, yeah.
So it's like liquidity providing fee.
Jason, you looked like you wanted to answer.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, I think the lowest hanging fruit is tacking on a fee per transaction. I think that's what we typically see. But with Axelar, because Axelar is a blockchain in itself, anytime you process a cross-chain transaction, you actually create utility for the Axelar token, AXL. And that's because the AXL token is used to pay relayers for the cross-chain transaction. And that kind of utility that it creates for the ecosystem is also a way, to create sustainability. I'd also like to add that with Axelar, because we have the full infrastructure stack, including relayers, there's a secondary monetization opportunity in potentially charging the application building on top of Axelar for using our cross-chain infrastructure like the relayers. But as of today, we only charge for gas because we know we're in the first inning of cross-chain, and we want as many applications and users to try out these applications and get used to cross-chain before we start thinking about monetization.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question? I saw there were a couple more. Todd, you had a question. I know you did. Question?
I came in late, so I did miss the beginning, so I apologize for that. But you guys are talking, I know, about hacks through bridges, right? Which I think you explained a little bit about it on the ones that just happened. Do you have any opinions, not necessarily on bridges, but hacks that are happening through what I would call stress scenarios? Usually they tend to have, I think it was Mango today that it happened to, right? How do you see, and I think that had a lot to do with the validators and the price of the coins and the perps and how they, I guess, worked out how the collateral will be valued and so on and so forth. Do you see anything like that that could possibly happen on a bridge? I don't think it would, but I'm just asking because I'm not aware.
Yeah. So the question is based on the architecture of the decollateralization or the inflation of the collateral value of the native token on Mango. Could something like that happen on our bridge? Is there a vulnerability? Yeah, I think that ties into a bigger question. Yeah,
whether it be that or what it could possibly happen on an Aave or any of those types of platforms.
Right.
Where people are trying to dictate where a price of something is, and someone takes that out of whack.
Yeah, is there a vulnerability like this on bridges, in your opinion?
We had something like this with Terra. So the whole Terra debacle which was happening this spring, we breached to Terra and from Terra, and it was a big volume there. So there was not a price manipulation, but suddenly the stable coin stopped being stable. And so $1 was equal to, I don't know, 5 cents. How much does it worth now? So it was a big volume on the bridge. Everyone was saving their funds, but essentially nothing happened because in our architecture, people lost money, but just because they owned the valued token. There could be such a problem. For example, again, I mentioned Allbridge Core, the new bridge we introduced, which is essentially cross-chain swap, where all the other stable coins are put in one basically decentralized pool, which swap one to another. And if one of those stable coins stops being stable, then the whole pool will be devalued. So that's why we don't just add any stable coin there, and we have a vetting process which is now manual before we introduce DAO. But right now we are working on the DAO, which will decide which stable coin will be added there. And the current hack to Mango is, it was not affecting DAO, but it was affecting the the tokens. So we will take a closer look again at our design to see what happens.
Absolutely. Unexpected events in terms of stablecoins not being stable, I think is something that we're all familiar with now, unfortunately. So let's zoom out a little bit and talk about what do bridges mean in terms of the landscape of the the cryptocurrency landscape. Like, is crypto diversity a good thing? Like, we've all kind of seen the drop in Bitcoin and Ethereum dominance, right, over the last year, 2 years. You can you make a chart. I should put a chart. It just goes like straight down. So there's a lot of diversity, and some of that's enabled by bridges. Is that a good thing?
Absolutely. I think bridges enable a lot more of user experience across different dApps, protocols, chains. So before you had to go to a centralized exchange to be able to withdraw an asset, which probably could cost you less to move it out in one chain or another, but then it wasn't useful. So creating this network of networks, I think it's the user experience there it's getting better and better and better. I mean, like a long time ago, if you started using some of the first bridges, there wasn't enough liquidity, times were long, and it could also be risky. I mean, now bridges are getting better in that sense. So I think the user experience is actually improving a lot in terms of everything.
So even if
you looked like you wanted to answer, yeah.
Yeah, so even if we say or we talk about the attacks on bridges, and that gives the impression that multi-chain or cross-chain future is inherently dangerous, I actually think that it can increase or improve the security for the end user. For example, in the future, it could be that, no one wants to put all their eggs into one basket. So in the future, it could be that people don't execute their applications just on one blockchain, but actually always have like multiple blockchains where they do this in parallel, and then you compare, and only when all blockchains agree, then you can be safe that everything worked correctly. And if one of the blockchains get attacked, you're still fine. Mm-hmm. So this could be one application, but you need to think of the end user, and of course the end user doesn't want to deal with all the details in the interchain world, but that's why you need an application layer in between that abstracts from that. And
right.
Once you have this, and I think the whole ecosystem will move there, it would still take a couple of years, but once you're there, I think for the end user, it's definitely the best world. You have a truly decentralized blockchain world, and that gives a lot of additional benefits and security, actually, to the end user.
Yeah. It makes sense, right? You have more options. You can compare. We're back to the kayak thing, right? Like, you can see all the different routes, all the different options, and be able to choose the one that suits you best. Makes a lot of sense. What do you think is the impact of bridging, like the kind of rise of bridging and interoperability on like the crypto landscape in general? Are we going to see, we're obviously in a bear market right now. Are we going to see more people coming in? Are we just going to see the people who are already in using more in different things? Like, what are your thoughts on the kind of the market trend around interoperability? Want to start, Jason?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're about to see a period of massive innovations, right? Even this conversation, everything we're talking about, we're using the term bridging. But from Axeler's perspective, bridging is only one type of application for cross-chain usage. I mentioned earlier about cross-chain swaps. Cross-chain swaps is a relatively new concept. But unlike traditional bridging, where you're locking an asset on one side and minting a replica of it on the other side, which creates the risk that you can suddenly be exploited and lose your assets on one side of the bridge, you don't have that risk with swaps, because the swaps are near atomic, and you're only bridging it across chain during that minute or so, depending on what chain you're going to. And this massively reduces security risk. And we're going to see all kinds of additional cross-chain innovations like this that will not only improve the user experience, but also minimize security risk. And this then will in turn drive adoption for a lot of these applications, and also for crypto as a whole.
Absolutely. Other comments on the state of the market as it relates to interoperability?
Overall market is a bit down. We all know it. But it's completely correct. The cross-chain and the current trends will result in more applications. We even cannot think of what it will be, but in the world where all blockchains will work together, very new, very interesting opportunity will arise. And this will bring more users. So we are waiting for it. We should be ready for it.
Like it. So I want to spend the last few minutes and just have each panelist answer the same question, which is, what's keeping you up at night? What is your next exciting thing that you're doing? And so I'm going to start on the end with Luis. And if you can answer the question, what's next for Credo?
So for Credo, next is continue to integrate a couple of layer 1s and layer 2s that I think we are actually missing at the moment, and the new exciting layer 1s that are coming, especially giving this decentralized multi-party computation custody with access to Web3 and DeFi. So this is something that really drives us right now, giving the users the opportunity to deploy assets and swap assets or trade assets or whatever they need to do with the assets, even mint assets or even deploy smart contracts in a very secure way. So that's our main focus at the moment.
Awesome. Yuri, how about Albridge?
Well, at Albridge we have our hands full, and I think I never thought I would say it, but thanks God for the crypto winter, because we can finally do what we wanted to do. Yeah. So building. We've got Bridge to Stellar coming in very soon again. I already told about this, and huge plans for existing products, and building.
Awesome. Kirsten.
Yeah, next steps, of course, get Spacewalk live, and while doing this, also more excitingly, get Pendulum live, our blockchain. We'll go live on Polkadot, and to go live on Polkadot is actually an involved process. You first need to go through a crowd loan phase, where you get a loan from the crowd, from your supporters. That's a process that we start in December, and if everything is successful, we can start in the middle of February, with Pendulum and Spacewalk. And by the way, if you want to learn more about this, then I will give a presentation in 10 minutes at the partner stage, and give a few more details about Spacewalk and Pendulum.
Awesome. Jason.
Yeah, we're also full speed ahead. On one side, we're going to integrate more blockchains, Stellar in early next year, and then we're going to have a lot of these applications that's been building on the Axelar platform go to market and actually be on mainnet within the next few months. And we think that's super exciting, because a lot of these cross-chain applications are something a lot of users haven't experienced before. I mentioned cross-chain swaps. We also have cross-chain lending and margining products where users can deposit some kind of collateral on any chain and mint and over-collateralize on stablecoin another chain. These kind of innovations, I think, are really going to blow the market away and hopefully get interest back into crypto. And something else that we're really excited about was last week we announced our partnership with Circle, where native USDC is enabling Axelar's message passing standards. The implication of that is massive, because now Axelar will be able to partner with a lot of these financial institutions and fintechs to actually power things like crypto payment processing in a seamless way that combines multiple steps into one, and that was previously seen as impossible. So lots of exciting stuff are coming, and thanks everyone for coming today, and stay tuned.
Fantastic. I really want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much. Axelar, Pendulum, Satoshi Pay, Albridge, and Credo. Great companies, terrific story, and thanks for commenting on all of the tough topics around interoperability and bridging. Thanks so much. Thank you to the audience, too. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.